The air in the alleyway tasted like copper and ozone, a thick, metallic tang that coated the back of my throat and made me want to gag. I shouldn't have taken the shortcut behind the old gym. I knew the rumors. Everyone on campus knew the rumors about the unauthorized fights, about the shadows that moved with lethal intent after midnight. But the rain was coming down in freezing sheets, blurring the neon green sign of the convenience store across the street into a radioactive smear, and I just wanted to get back to my dorm. That mistake, that single lapse in judgment born of exhaustion, cost me my freedom. The sound wasn't a cinematic thud like you hear in the movies. It was a wet, sickening crunch of bone meeting concrete, followed by a silence that was somehow louder than the storm. I froze behind a stack of rusted pallets, my breath hitching in my chest, my hoodie soaking through to my skin. Under the flickering buzz of a broken street lamp, I saw him. Kai, the campus nightmare, the ghost story freshmen whispered about. He was shirtless, despite the freezing rain, his back a canvas of black ink dragons and jagged scars that glistened with sweat and water. He was standing over a guy twice his size who wasn't moving. Kai wasn't just fighting, he was destroying. He moved with a terrifying, fluid grace, like a tiger playing with meat. I took a step back, my sneaker squeaking against the wet asphalt. The sound was microscopic, a tiny friction of rubber on stone, but in that deadly silence, it echoed like a gunshot. Kai stopped mid-motion. He didn't turn around immediately. He wiped his bloody knuckles on his jeans, tilted his head to the side as if listening to a frequency only he could hear, and then he looked. His eyes were dead voids, black pits void of anything human, until they locked onto me. Then a spark ignited, a dark, twisted amusement that made my blood run cold. "Run," he whispered, the word barely carrying over the drum of the rain. I tried. God, I tried. I turned and scrambled for the street, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. But he was a predator, and I was just prey. I hadn't made it 3 steps before a hand made of iron slammed into my chest, pinning me against the rough brick wall. The air left my lungs in a pained wheeze as my head cracked lightly against the masonry. Kai loomed over me, blocking out the neon light, consuming my entire field of vision. He smelled of adrenaline, stale smoke, and fresh violence. A drop of blood from his split lip fell onto my cheek, hot and searing, branding me. "You saw," he rasped, his voice a low rumble vibrating against my chest. He leaned in, his nose brushing mine, invading my space until I was dizzy with his scent. "You saw everything, pretty boy." I won't tell," I choked out, my hands trembling as I gripped his forearms, trying to push him away. It was like pushing a marble statue. His skin was burning hot, feverish with the after effects of the fight. Kai smirked, exposing a silver tongue piercing that glinted in the dark. It was a sharp contrast to the blood staining his teeth. "I know you won't, because I know where you live. I know where you study." He shifted his grip, his hand moving to my throat, not squeezing, just resting there, a promise of violence. "From this moment on, your life belongs to me. You breathe because I let you. You speak when I tell you." I stared into his abyss-like eyes, paralyzed by a mixture of terror and a strange, electric jolt that zapped through my spine. "Nod if you understand," he commanded softly. I nodded, and just like that, the trap snapped shut. That was how it started. I thought he was going to kill me that night, to silence me permanently. Instead, he dragged me into his world. My life became a series of terrified visits to his basement apartment, a concrete box beneath an abandoned industrial complex that smelled of musk, leather, and danger. It wasn't a home, it was a cage for a wild animal. I became his shadow, his servant, his secret. "Clean it," he commanded 2 nights later, kicking a plastic first aid kit across the scratched concrete floor as he collapsed onto his stained mattress. I stood by the heavy steel door, clutching my backpack straps, looking at the ruin of him. He had been fighting again. A deep gash tracked through his left eyebrow, blinding him with blood, and his knuckles were raw meat. He looked exhausted, lethal, and devastatingly beautiful in a way that made my stomach churn. I walked over, my legs feeling like lead. I knelt between his spread legs on the mattress. The position was compromising, humiliating, and terrifyingly intimate. He radiated heat like a furnace, the air around him thick with the metallic scent of blood and the mint of the gum he chewed to mask the cigarettes. I said, "Fix it, Haru," he grunted, leaning his head back and closing his eyes. "Unless you want me to bleed out on your lap." "Shut up," I whispered, my voice shaking. "I'm doing it." I opened the kit, my fingers fumbling with the alcohol wipes. I reached out, and as soon as the cold wipe touched the raw skin above his eye, he hissed. His hand shot out, gripping my thigh with bruising force. His fingers dug into my flesh through my jeans, hard enough to hurt, hard enough to leave a mark I would see in the shower later. "Fuck," he cursed through gritted teeth. "Stop moving," I snapped, fear momentarily giving way to annoyance, "or I'll stitch it crooked and ruin your pretty face." Kai went still. One eye cracked open, the black, dilated pupil fixing on me. But he didn't let go of my thigh. Instead, his thumb started to stroke the denim, a slow, rhythmic circle that felt obscenely possessive given the situation. I tried to focus on the wound, but it was impossible not to look at him. Up close, the violence on his face was distracting. I traced the sharp line of his jaw with my eyes, the long lashes resting on his high cheekbones, the sweat trickling down his neck into the hollow of his throat. My gaze drifted lower to the ink. A serpent coiled around his bicep, its fangs bared. Script I couldn't read crossed his collarbones. I hated him. I hated that I was here. I hated that he terrified me. But as I wrapped the gauze around his battered hand, feeling the calluses and the roughness of his skin against my soft, artist's fingers, I realized my heart wasn't racing from fear anymore. It was racing from proximity. "Soft," he murmured, his voice dropping an octave, vibrating in the quiet room. I froze, pulling my hand back, but he caught my wrist. He pulled my hand away from the bandage and pressed my palm flat against his bare, tattooed chest. Under my fingertips, his heart was beating, slow, powerful, thump, thump, thump. "You're going to be useful, Haru," he said, tasting my name like it was something sweet he wanted to devour. He stared at me, his gaze heavy and hooded. You destroy my focus, but you fix the damage. Maybe I'll keep you around a while longer." "I hate you," I breathed, though I didn't pull my hand away. Kai smirked, the expression dark and knowing. "Good. Hate is better than indifference. Hate means you're thinking about me." The invisible leash he had on me tightened with every passing day. I thought I could keep my two lives separate, the terrified servant in the basement and the invisible student at the university. I was wrong. Kai didn't do boundaries. It happened in the locker room after gym class. I was laughing at something Min-ho, a guy from my art history seminar, had said. Min-ho was nice, normal, safe. He put a friendly hand on my shoulder, squeezing it lightly as he made a joke about the professor. "Thanks, Min-ho," I said, smiling. Suddenly, the air in the room dropped 10 degrees. The chatter of the other students died down, replaced by an uneasy silence. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up before I even saw him. Min-ho flinched, his eyes widening as he looked over my shoulder. He pulled his hand back as if he'd been burned. I gotta go, Haru. See you." He walked away fast, head down. I turned around. Kai was there. He shouldn't have been there. He wasn't a student. He was wearing black cargo pants and a tight tank top that showed off every inch of his ink-stained arms. He looked like a wolf that had wandered into a pen of sheep. He didn't speak. He just walked toward me. I backed up until my spine hit the cold metal of the lockers. The sound of the impact echoed through the tiled room. Kai caged me in, planting his hands on the lockers on either side of my head. The metal rattled under his grip. He was breathing hard, a sheen of sweat on his skin, smelling of musk and aggression. He invaded my personal space completely, his body pressing against mine, forcing me to feel the hardness of his chest against my soft hoodie. "Kai, stop," I gasped, looking around frantically. "You can't be here." "He touched you," Kai growled, his voice a low, dangerous snarl. His eyes were wild, dilated with a mixture of rage and something else, something possessive and hungry. "So, he's a friend," I shot back, trying to sound brave, but my voice wavered. "People have friends, Kai. Normal people touch each other." "You're not normal people," Kai whispered. He leaned down, burying his face in the crook of my neck. I stopped breathing. I should have pushed him away. I should have screamed. But the heat rolling off him was dizzying. My knees went weak. He dragged his teeth lightly over the sensitive skin of my neck, just enough to scrape, just enough to claim. It sent a jolt of electricity straight to my groin. "You're mine until the debt is paid. You belong to me, Haru. Every inch of skin, every breath." "You can't own a person," I whispered, my eyes fluttering shut as his nose brushed against my pulse point. "Watch me," he murmured against my skin. "If anyone touches you again, I'll break their fingers. Do you understand?" He pulled back just enough to look me in the eye. His gaze was intense, burning through my defenses. He waited. "Do you understand?" he repeated, louder this time. "Yes," I breathed, the word tumbling out of me. It was a surrender. He stared at me for a second longer, his eyes dropping to my lips, and for a terrifying moment, I thought he was going to kiss me, right there in the university locker room. Instead, He pushed off the lockers and turned away, leaving me trembling against the cold metal, confused, terrified, and aching for something I couldn't name. The debt was supposed to end on fight night. That was the deal. One last fight, one big payout, and I was free. I stood in the shadows of the underground arena, the air thick with smoke and the roar of a bloodthirsty crowd. The bass of the music vibrated in the floorboards. In the center of the cage, Kai was a monster. I watched through the chain-link fence, my fingers gripping the metal until they turned white. It was brutal. It was bloody. Kai took hits that would have killed a normal man, and he dished out violence with terrifying precision. Blood sprayed across the canvas. I should have been horrified. I was horrified, but beneath the nausea, there was something else. Seeing him move like that, seeing the raw, unbridled power, it turned my stomach in a way that felt dangerously like desire. He was lethal, and he was magnificent. When the final bell rang, Kai was the last man standing. He didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He spat blood onto the mat and scanned the crowd with wild, frantic eyes until he found me in the shadows. He didn't wait for me to come to him. He vaulted the fence, ignoring the cheers, ignoring the money. He grabbed my wrist, his grip slick with sweat and blood, and dragged me through the crowd. "Kai, wait, you're hurt," I tried to say, stumbling after him. He didn't stop. He kicked open the back exit door and dragged me into the rainy alley, shoving me against the side of his black sedan. The windows were tinted, the car hidden in the shadows. He was high on adrenaline, chest heaving, pupils blown wide. He looked at me like he wanted to tear me apart. "Did you see me?" he demanded, crowding me against the car door, trapping me between his body and the cold metal. "Did you watch?" "I watched," I whispered. "You won. You can let me go now. The debt is paid." Kai stared at me. The rain mixed with the blood on his face, running down his neck. "Is that what you want?" he asked, his voice rough, broken. "You want to leave?" I looked at him, really looked at him. The split lip, the dangerous eyes that were solely focused on me, ignoring the chaos of the world around us. My heart was hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs, matching his. "No," I whispered. The truth hung in the air between us, heavy and damning. That one word broke the dam. Kai crushed his mouth to mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss. It wasn't romantic. It tasted of iron, salt, and desperation. He kissed me like he was fighting for air, his hands tangling in my hair, pulling my head back to deepen the angle. I gasped into his mouth, and he took advantage, his tongue sweeping inside, claiming me. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him down, grinding my body against his. The fear was gone. The logic was gone. There was only the heat of his skin, the bruise of his grip on my waist, the overwhelming, intoxicating taste of him. He groaned, a low, animalistic sound in his throat, and lifted me up, pressing me against the car. I wrapped my legs around his waist, burying my hands in his wet hair. It was messy. It was violent. It was everything I had been terrified of, and it was everything I needed. "You're mine," he growled against my lips, biting my lower lip hard enough to draw blood. "Say it." "I'm yours," I sobbed, clinging to him. "I'm yours, Kai." I woke up in his bed the next morning. The basement smelled different now. It smelled of sex and musk and him. The sheets were tangled around my legs. I sat up, wincing at the soreness in my muscles, the bite mark on my neck stinging slightly. Kai was standing by the high, narrow window, smoking a cigarette. The smoke curled around his bare shoulders, highlighting the bruises on his back that were already turning purple. He looked like a fallen angel, beautiful and broken. I knew the door was unlocked. I knew the deal was over. I could get up, put on my clothes, and walk out. I could go back to my dorm, to my art classes, to Minho and his safe jokes. I could pretend this never happened. Kai turned around. He looked at me, his expression unreadable, guarded. He took a drag of his cigarette and exhaled slowly. "You're still here," he said quietly. I looked at the tattoos on his chest, remembering how they felt under my fingertips. I looked at his hands, the hands that had hurt people, the hands that had held me together last night. I knew this was toxic. I knew he would ruin me. I knew that loving him was like loving a forest fire. It would eventually burn everything down. But as I looked at him, feeling the residual hum of adrenaline in my veins, I realized something terrifying. I didn't want safety. I didn't want normal. I was addicted to the danger. I was addicted to the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. I pulled the sheet up, settling back against his pillows. "Make me breakfast," I said, my voice raspy. A slow, dangerous grin spread across Kai's face. He crushed the cigarette out and walked toward the bed, the predator reclaiming his prey. "As you wish," he whispered. I closed my eyes as he leaned over me, knowing I was never leaving this cage. And for the first time in my life, I was perfectly fine with that.